Welcome y bienvenidos to the Cultural Capacity Podcast. I'm Justine Gonzalez, one of the hosts here. Today's episode is so fire. It's kind of like a mic drop. I just listened to it while I was doing some stretching in the morning, and it's perfect length for that, as are all of our episodes. We actually designed this podcast, Cultural Capacity. If this is your first time here or you're telling someone about it, we've designed this podcast so you can use it for your own individual personal development or professional learning with teams. It's great because they're 15 minutes or less. You could send it out as a resource once a month, every couple weeks, to just have people have another resource to explore and examine themselves. We are all about self-awareness here, and doing that through exploration of topics like diversity, equity, inclusion, culture, adaptive leadership, emotional intelligence, awareness. And today's host, Kara Gonzalez Howard, who happens to be the creative director at Educator Aid Incorporated, as well as my sister, she spent so many years doing incredible things in the field of nursing. One of those roles was being a nurse educator, so training new nurses. And one of the examples she gives in this episode, talk about convicted. She somehow brings this back to our own mental mindsets and how we stop ourselves from really achieving the life that we want to design. So I just encourage you to really dive into this episode, be prepared to really learn a lot of wisdom, drop a lot of nuggets. And yeah, be sure to check out the show notes. There is a voice memo option. You can send us questions, but I specifically included, if you don't follow Kara on Instagram, please look in the show notes and follow her on Instagram. She's at Glam Gourmet Home, but then you'll see the link in her bio as well as in the show notes. I would highly recommend setting up a wellness or well-being check-in consult call with her, and that link is in the show notes. She has helped me incredibly in my journey, and we continue to do so with one another, and that's why we're here with you. So enjoy this episode. Please do know that right after our little intro song, we have a less than 1 minute ad from this episode's sponsor that I got the pleasure of doing with my longtime partner, Thaddeus. Love you. So here we go. Without further ado, let's get compassionately curious together with this episode, which asks the question, why should I suspend my disbelief? Thank you, Kara. Welcome and bienvenidos to Cultural Capacity, a podcast sponsored by Educator Aid Incorporated, where our team is committed to supporting individuals and organizations on their journey of self-aware leadership, emotional wellness, and development of effective cross-cultural communications. Let's get ready to explore the following topics together by biting into them with little pieces that go really deep to examine ourselves. Topics like bias, culture, cultural psychology, cultural neuroscience, diversity, equity, inclusion, and racial equity. Our episodes are all intended to serve as introspective tools for you as the individual leader or the teams that you're leading. Be sure to check out the links in the podcast description. Let's get ready to learn together.
Hello and welcome to the Cultural Capacity Podcast. My name is Kara Gonzalez Howard and I will be your hostess today for the Cultural Capacity Podcast. I hope you're all doing well. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about a concept called suspending your disbelief. This is something that I was introduced to as a nurse educator. We often used this in simulation purposes. We would have participants come in and work with mannequins and equipment that they would use in real life, but it was for cases that were simply very high risk, but we experienced a low volume of these cases. So we would need to create a scenario in which they had to act in a way that in which they would act in real life. Suspending your disbelief in this situation is super important because we'd often have people come into the room feeling unsure and feeling really self-conscious about the fact that they were going to be performing real-life actions and real-life measures that they would normally perform in a patient bedside setting, They felt self-conscious that they were going to have to act this out in a way. This is also a concept used in the entertainment world. It's something that we have to do actually to do any form of entertainment. As an audience member, we have to suspend our disbelief and put ourselves in this place of kind of an imaginary space of what could be, allows us to experience a performance for how it resonates within us. And if we aren't able to do this, entertainment really has no meaning. Today, I want to talk a little bit about this concept of suspending your disbelief um, around things that we tell ourselves in our daily lives. We have this preconceived notion that the thing that we've chosen, the path that we've taken, is maybe all that's available to us. However, many of us experience dissonance at different points during our career, our chosen path, that cause us to put on the brakes and say, hey, this is not fulfilling me in the way that I thought it was, or there is a hole here. I'm missing something in my life. Oftentimes, this leads us to a place of feeling maybe insecure. It causes us distress in many different ways. When really, in these moments, if we simply suspended our disbelief, we could do maybe a whole lot more than we think we are capable of doing. What is the first thing you think when you think about quitting cold turkey, your current career path, and doing something that lights you up, that ignites you? Maybe it's something that in your younger years in high school and college you thought, I can't do this because it's something that is not going to bring a viable income. I want to have a family. This would not mesh well with family life, etc., etc. The stories that we tell ourselves. But yet there's still these little tiny inklings deep within each of us that feel kind of a discontentment if we choose to go a path that maybe meets the standards of what our parents have planned for us, what our peers have planned for us, and what kind of our society tells us is valuable. We still have that little underpinning that sometimes comes up and creeps in and continues to do so throughout our lifetime. Many of you who have been listening to this podcast since its inception know that I am a nurse by trade. I retired from nursing at age 39 about 1 year ago. I've been in nursing for almost 2 decades and I was burnt out. Currently, I am working as an artist, and I call myself an artist because not because I sit around and draw and paint and sell those things, but because a lot of the work that I do also do that, but a lot of the work that I do with clients is very creative in nature. I do a lot of writing. I do a wide amount, a variation of things that I would never have seen myself doing years and years ago. And actually, while these things crossed my mind to go into when I decided on my major in college, I shoved them aside. Even though they're things that I'm very gifted at naturally, I shoved them aside in pursuit of something that seemed a little more quote unquote stable, such as nursing. For me, years of being exposed to trauma and having some trauma, unhealed trauma in my own life, led to kind of a place of this is it, this has got to come to an end in one way or the other. And thankfully, because I was able to suspend my disbelief in both myself and my current chosen path in small ways while I was still nursing, I am now in a space of feeling like I'm contributing in the world in the way that God meant for me to be. There is a large spiritual component, I believe, in suspending your disbelief. When we think about the things that light us up, we often will talk ourselves down immediately because of shame, because of feeling inadequate or not up to the task. We may look at somebody that's doing something that we, in our heart of hearts, want to be doing and actually vocalize some sort of kind of put down towards them or shaming of them because of our own insecurity. When in reality, we know very well that we'd be super, super happy to be doing what whoever our person is that we're choosing to kind of bring down because of our own insecurity. For me, suspending my disbelief meant doing things like beginning to journal again, beginning to draw and paint, beginning to dive into some of the creative things that I used to love, like dance, singing, playing piano, the things that I would gravitate to as a young child and then into my young adulthood that got handily kind of taken away and dismissed as I grew a family, as I focused on my nursing career, etc. Yet there was still this big, kind of void, and I did not feel like I was on the path anymore to where I needed to be. Initially, doing these small things and incorporating them into my life again felt kind of silly, felt a little bit pointless. It felt like a road to nowhere in many ways because I have no designs to become a famous artist or a famous writer or, you know, being well known has never really appealed to me, but the art itself is what is attractive. It's a way for me to express some of the observations I have within the world that otherwise go stifled in my system and become painful. And I need that in my life. And I have discovered that if I don't have that in my life, things aren't quite as rosy as as what they could be. Suspending your disbelief about your own abilities is the key to kind of transitioning to a lifestyle of being fully embodied in who you were created to be, which is also a very spiritual act as well. One thing I'd love for everyone to do who listens to this podcast is to take 15 to 20 minutes today and choose an activity that lights you up, that brings you joy, that really brought you life, maybe in a past life. Maybe it's a sports thing, maybe it's an outdoors thing. I don't know what that is for you, but don't poo poo that idea. I want you to suspend your disbelief for a moment and ask yourself, what if? I don't want you to have any shame around the activity that you're doing. I don't want you to even feel like there needs to be a point. I want you to just feel how that feels in your body and how that would feel to incorporate within your life. And then I want you to evaluate that afterwards and see if this is something that you truly want to live without. Most of the time, the answer is no. You want to continue with that. It made you feel embodied. It made you feel whole in different ways. And I would encourage each of you to just experience that feeling just for a brief portion of your day. And the challenge is then incorporating that into every day so that that little spark, maybe that ignites into something different. Maybe in a year from now, you'll be doing something completely different in your life than you had ever envisioned for yourself. I think this concept of suspending your disbelief is super important when it comes to critical thinking, when it comes to communication with others. We often enter into situations where we are presented with new information, maybe that a perspective that we've never heard before, or a perspective that we struggle to understand that requires us a certain level of this suspending of your disbelief in order to hear another person's perspective and story. I hope this was helpful for you in some way. I hope you found motivation and inspiration and some sort of reprieve from the day to day. This is something that I feel if everyone committed to doing something for 15 to 20 minutes a day that caused them to experience embodiment in a full and whole way, it would transform your life. I truly believe that. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in the lives of people close to me, professionally, and it's just an amazing practice. So let us know in the comments here if you got something special out of this episode. We'd love to hear back from you. There's a way to leave a voice memo in Anchor. If you would like to leave us a question or just kind of talk with us about what you learned in this episode, have a wonderful day, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for showing up for yourself today and tuning in to this episode of the Cultural Capacity Podcast. We're glad you're here. If you found value in this episode, be sure to share out with your social networks. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a review on Apple. You know, all the things. Finally, don't forget to take advantage of our free quarterly subscription that is in our podcast description. The link is right there. It's called Better Community, and we would love to have you join us there too. Until next time, take care.